All right, we're going to get started. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, April 25th, 2017, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to conduct a public hearing on the 2017-18 budget and to transact the regular business of the board and any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 and the public laws of 1975 entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, April 20th, 2017, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, can we have a roll call, please?
Mike Phelan.
Here.
Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Robert Garrison. Chris Langhart.
Here.
Gretchen Oleg.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Charles Ostroff.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here. Amy, can you lead us in a flag salute? Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. Michael, we'll start down there.
Yes. Congratulations to the teams from Edison and Roosevelt Intermediate Schools who won awards at the YMCA 8th Annual United Healthcare Health Bee on Tuesday, April 4th. The Health Bee is a Jeopardy-style competition designed to get 7th grade students excited about health, fitness, and nutrition. Participants from 7 schools competed with Edison Intermediate School, winning first place, earning a grand prize of $1,000 for the health and wellness programs, and Roosevelt Intermediate School winning a $250 prize for the School Spirit Award. Michelle.
Thank you. Charles, you?
Okay, Westfield High School Visual and Performing Arts. Congratulations to 17-year-old Audrey Leonard, who recently won second place for her age group in New Jersey Department of Transportation's Aviation Art Contest. This year's theme was Beyond the Clouds. Audrey, who attends Westfield High School and the Union County Votech, gave credit to her teachers. She said, certain teachers at Westfield High School, such as Dr. Ruggieri and Mrs. Jarvis, really pushed me out of my comfort zone, taught me a lot, and helped me get a better understanding of different mediums. Another one of Leonard's artwork will be formally displayed with other entries in a public ceremony on Saturday, May 13th at Merck's Kenilworth facility. Also, congratulations to Westfield High School senior Dale Bayard, who was selected to perform in the All-Eastern Honors Concert Band in Atlantic City. According to the All-Eastern Music Association, Bayard, a trumpet player, is among the most musically talented high school students in the eastern region of the United States. Congratulations to both.
Thank you. Brendan?
Yep. Westfield High School's Diversity Committee is sponsoring a celebration of cultural identity on Friday, April 28th in Cafeteria B from 6 to 8 p.m. Enjoy student performances and food representing different traditions.
This is from the intermediate schools. Congratulations to the Westfield debate team of Owen Mason and Mira Maida, who won the middle school public forum division, besting 35 other teams at the Lakeland Westchester Classic on March 3rd and 4th. Earlier on January 20th, 3 teams from Westfield swept first, second, and third places in the public forum division of the Montville Middle School Invitational. The teams included first place Mira Maida and Kaylee Zhao. Second place was Grace Endy and Owen Mason, and in third place Maya Diaz and Mackenzie Wilson. And also congratulations to 2 Odyssey of the Mind teams from Edison Intermediate School, who both placed first in their category as New Jersey state champions. They are advancing to the World Finals at Michigan State University from May 24th to the 28th, when teams from more than 35 countries will compete in a long-term problem category and a spontaneous problems-solving exercise. The Board of Education is inviting both teams and their volunteer coaches to our June 20th meeting to pay tribute to their state championship. In the meantime, we wish them the best of luck in the World Finals in May.
Thank you. Amy, do you have anything?
I do, yep. Congratulations to the Drama Department of Westfield High School. The fall production of Romeo and Juliet received the following Montclair State University Foxy Award nominations, formerly called the Theater Night Awards. Outstanding production of a classical play, outstanding achievement in stage combat. Charlotte Fountain Jardim was nominated for outstanding performance by a lead actress in a classical play. Julian Mazzola for outstanding performance by a supporting actor in a classical play. Abigail Connolly for outstanding performance by a supporting actress in a classical play, and Daniel Devlin for outstanding achievement in stage direction. Winners will be announced at a ceremony at Montclair State University on Monday, May 15th at 7 p.m. Also, congratulations to Westfield High School for receiving the following awards at the Bucks County Student Theater Festival: Best Overall Production, For Whom the Southern Bell Tolls, and also Best Actress in that production for Emmy Nadeau, and Best Comic Duo for Katie Berry and Julian Mazzola in the production of Five Women Wearing the Same Dress. Sydney Stewart won the Best Featured Actress Award also. So,
Nicely done. Chris?
Yes, one announcement. Congratulations to Roosevelt Intermediate School teacher Brian Veith, who was presented with the 2017 Dedication to Education Award during a ceremony at Monmouth University on April 2nd. Mr. Veith also is an adjunct professor at Monmouth University, where he teaches undergraduate men and women who will be entering the teaching profession. In a letter informing Veith of the honor, the Executive Board of Kappa Delta Pi, the International Honor Society in Education, wrote, "They have chosen you for your extraordinary dedication and commitment to the field of education. Mr. Veith has been a teacher of social studies at Roosevelt Intermediate School for 20 years. So congratulations to him." That's it.
Yep, I have two announcements from Westfield High School. Neither have to do with days off, which is usually what I announce. Congratulations to Westfield High School social studies teachers Elizabeth Piombino and Joseph Berardi, who have been accepted as fellows in the Woodrow Wilson History Quest Institute in Princeton this summer. This involved a competitive grant process in order to enter the renowned program, which focuses on new ways to work with game-like learning in social studies classrooms. Also, congratulations to Dan Faribault, who has been accepted to the Supreme Court Summer Institute week-long program in Washington, D.C. Mr. Faribault will have the opportunity to collaborate with teachers from around the country to create and use a variety of interactive strategies to teach students about the U.S. Supreme Court and its cases. Participants will also visit the Supreme Court, meet with deputies of the court to learn how the court operates, and participate in a moot court based on a recent case. Congratulations to all.
I actually have two announcements this evening. Time is running short for receipt of nominations for the 20th Annual Intermediate School Outstanding Teacher Award. Students, parents, and staff are encouraged to submit nomination letters no later than Friday, May 5th. Two intermediate school teachers, one from Edison and one from Roosevelt, will be chosen to receive the award on June 14th at an Optimist dinner, and will be honored at a Westfield Board of Education meeting on June 13th. Nominations should specify ways in which a teacher, guidance counselor, or nurse educator has demonstrated outstanding teaching, interest in children, and continued pursuit of professional growth. The nominee must be a full-time teaching in the Westfield Public Schools in grades 6 through 8 for a minimum of 5 years. Please send letters to Outstanding Teacher Award Committee of the Optimist Club of Westfield, care of Office of the Superintendent, Westfield Public Schools, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, 07090. Letters can also be emailed to optiaward@westfieldnjk12.org. The first part is Opti Award, OPTI Award, at westfieldnjk12.org. The second announcement, really, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. A former assistant superintendent in Westfield, Dr. Ted or Theodore Kozlik, was the assistant superintendent basically for special services for 24 years, which meant that he started with some students who were classified and needed special support when they were 3 years old and entered our programs, and he was still here when those students were graduated from Westfield High School. He played a big role in this district for many years. When he left us and retired, he went on to work and help out at the state level and with other districts. And one of the major things he also did was he was quite a mentor. And one of the people that he mentored is actually our current Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services, Dr. Weissman. So Dr. Kozlik just died last week, and it's quite a loss, and we appreciate everything that he has done for this district, and his legacy lives on. So I'd like to just ask for a moment of silence for Dr. Kozlik. Thank you.
Our next Board of Education meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, May 9th at 7:30 PM at one of our elementary schools, where we'll honor our Phil Hauer Elementary Teacher of the Year, and as is our tradition, the meeting will be held at that teacher's school. So location to be disclosed, correct?
Correct.
The complete agenda will be available on Friday, May 5th on the board's website. At this point, I'd recognize members of the public for agenda items only. Seeing no one come to the podium, we'll move on to our public hearing on the 17-18 budget. Do you do the presentation and then we move the resolution?
Yes.
All right, so I'll turn it over to Dana.
Yes, so you'll remember that at the March 16th board meeting, the board adopted a tentative budget, which we submitted to the Union County Superintendent for review. On April 7th, it was reviewed by the Union County Superintendent. It was advertised last Thursday in the paper. Tonight, we'll do a presentation very similar to the presentation we did on March 16th, because the budget has not changed at all since then. And then we'll ask the board to adopt the final budget. So the revenue side of the budget, our total budget is $103 million. Our tax levy is about $69,000 less than the state cap, which is 2% plus certain waivers that were allowed. So our increase is actually about 2.7%. State aid, as you can see here, is staying completely flat for the next school year. It will be the same amount that we currently receive. We have some small areas of revenue, special aid, Medicaid revenue, which is increasing slightly. Fund balance, we had been appropriating $750,000 for use in the operating budget. This year, we are using $913,000 out of the operating budget, and I'll talk about that a little later on. Other revenue consists of interest income, building rental income, student activity fees, and we're projecting a slight increase in there. That's mostly due to interest, and the fact that interest rates are actually going up a little bit, so we've seen an increase there. And in this budget, we will be depositing $1.25 million into reserve accounts to be used in the future. So the state aid is a percent of the total budget. For 2017-18, we project that at about 3.5%. The aid itself has remained stable for a number of years, but of course our budget increases every year, so that the percent of the budget that is supported by state aid decreases every year. So now we're down to about 3.5%. Back in 1991-92, the budget was over 8%, was supported by state aid. So the operating budget increase is about $2.1 million. You can see just less than $1 million, about $959,000 of that is due to projected increases in our health insurance costs. We have 4 teachers that we've added to the budget, 1 at the intermediate level and 3 in special ed. And those are for some enrollment increases as well as programmatic enhancements. We have projected salary increases for all of our staff. We have increases for utilities, transportation contracts, and pension costs. And most of the other areas of the budget have decreased. And you see some decreases there in special ed. We added teachers, and we've decreased some of our out-of-district expenses. We're anticipating being able to add programs or enhance programs that are currently in the district, which will allow us to keep some more students in district rather than going to out-of-district placements. So our enrollment has been stable for the last almost 7 years, 5 to 7 years. But you can see from the last 20 years, our enrollment has increased dramatically. We don't expect any large increases in the near future. We are looking at some enrollment projections going forward, but that's why we see very small increases in staff, because our enrollment is relatively stable. The goals of this budget were to maintain district programs at the level of excellence, to continue to make technology a priority and fund the amounts recommended by the Technology Committee, to deliver a responsible budget to the taxpayers that is within the state's cap, and to continue using fund balance at the level of $750,000 to support the budget, and to maintain reserves in the capital reserve account that would cover the track and turf replacement that we plan to do next summer. So the first one is maintain academic programs. This slide will show you just some of the things that highlight the achievements that our students have made. Pretty much every board meeting in the announcements section, and many times we have students come into the district, come into the meeting to honor them. So I think we all know that our academic programs are maintained, and this budget will continue with those programs. We have a significant amount of money in the budget for technology, and we've broken it up into two pieces. The first slide here shows investment in technology. So this is computers, projectors, these are mostly equipment. At least the top part of this slide is mostly equipment that we will be purchasing for students and staff. And the lower half of that slide is improvements we'll be making to the infrastructure to increase speed, as well as firewalls and protect our network. And then the other half of technology that they are almost evenly split cost-wise as well are recurring costs that we have for technology. So the payments we make for our internet service and the private fiber. We have a significant amount that we pay for licenses and technical services for all of our technology, subscriptions, phone service, and then of course maintaining. Goal 3, deliver a responsible budget to the taxpayers within the state's cap. As I mentioned earlier, we're about $69,000 under the cap. The increase is about 2.7% on the tax levy, and for an average homeowner in Westfield, that comes to about $248. This would just be for the school portion of taxes. Our cost per pupil, this is a calculation that the state takes audited numbers from each town, each school district, and calculates, they actually calculate several different costs per pupil. This one is what is called the budgetary cost per pupil, which means they've taken some costs out of this calculation, things like out-of-district tuition, out-of-district transportation, that they don't consider comparable from district to district. So our cost here is $13,434, and you can see compared to districts, many of which are similar to us, we are lower than them, and we're lower than the state average, which is $14,736. And that, all of these districts are K-12s. The state average there is for a K-12 district as well. The fourth goal was to continue funding the budget at continue to budget $750,000 of fund balance as a revenue. We did actually increase that this year to $913,000. But that extra amount, that $163,000, is being used for some technology costs as well as some science supplies that are one-time expenses. So that in the 18-19 budget, we can use $750,000 of revenue, and we're not gonna have a shortfall on our expense side. But we did have to use that money per the state regulations this year. Last goal was to fund the track and turf replacement out of capital reserve accounts. So, summer of 2018, we need to replace the turf that has been in for about 13, 14 years, as well as replace the track that goes around it. We also have some other projects, locker room renovations at the middle schools. We have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning control upgrades that we plan to do around the district. We have other classroom renovations that we plan to do, and the funds are in the capital reserve accounts for those projects, which will all be completed between this summer and next summer. We also have a number of smaller projects that will be funded out of the maintenance reserve account. Ceiling and lighting replacement that we'll be doing at various schools, resurfacing and replacing floors. We have painting that we'll be continuing to do, concrete repairs, and again, we have repairs to heating and ventilating systems district-wide. A few years ago, we had a bond referendum that was approved. We did a number of those projects last summer. Some of the bigger projects are in line for this summer, the biggest of them being the auditorium upgrades at both middle schools. We have contractors that are starting to work, well, they haven't physically started in the schools yet, but we've had several meetings with them, so work is well underway on those projects. We've awarded contract for the barrier lift installation at Roosevelt. We've awarded contracts for the replacement of the multipurpose room floors at Jefferson, Tamaulipas, and Washington. We have awarded contracts for fire alarm replacements at Edison, Kaler, Lincoln, Tamaulipas, Washington, and Wilson. And the boilers at Roosevelt, we were currently out to bid. That is a project which, if you remember, we previously had bid it with the high school boilers, and they came in very high, so we rebid the project. So that's the only one of these that we haven't yet awarded a contract. So all of these projects are underway and will be completed hopefully by the end of summer. I talked about the calendar previously, but the board started discussions back in December on the budget. The administrators and staff started discussions prior to that, late October, early November, so we have been working on the budget internally for a very long time and publicly for quite a while as well. And tonight we'll conclude our budget discussion for 17-18. And are there any questions?
Do we know when the boiler rebids are due?
We do, but I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah.
It's next week or the week after.
Oh, so it's pretty imminent.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay.
calendar, yeah.
And the fire alarm replacements aren't done? I thought this was the last building to be done, no?
No, we did three schools last year, and the rest we're doing this year.
This summer.
We didn't have time to do all of them last summer.
Could you remind me, because I know you've told us before, the state requiring that we use the funds in excess of 750 from fund balance, what was that?
Yeah, anything over the 2%, we're allowed to maintain 2% of our operating budget,
Right,
which is roughly $2 million, it's a little over $2 million.
right.
Anything that we have above that, we have to use. We either have to use it for the operating budget, or we have to put it into reserve accounts. So we have done that, but because we had some one-time cost that we knew we needed to purchase, instead of putting that money into the reserve accounts, that extra piece, we put it into the operating budget, knowing that we didn't need to do
For
that
the
next year.
expenses. Okay, great, thank you. Anybody? Anyone from the public have any questions? All right, then I would ask the board to approve the resolution to adopt the 2017-18 school budget and tax levy. Can I have a second, please? Mark, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Are you going to do roll call?
Roll call.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dana.
Mike Beeland,
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Amy Rue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good job, Dana.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
good job
Yeah,
there.
thanks for all your
Yeah, I would
work.
just like to say,
Thank you.
Dana, and I know Mark has worked on that too, as head of the finance committee. Great job.
Thank you.
Dr. Dolan, Superintendent's Report.
Tonight's Superintendent's Report focuses on technology. We saw in the budget that it is something that we continuously work on each and every year. And to present tonight, I'll first introduce the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Mr. Paul Pinero. And he will be joined by our two master technology teachers, Janine Gotko and Adam Peasy.
Thanks, Dr. Dolan. Good evening, everyone. And I guess I'll thank in advance Adam and Janine for coming out tonight. So a few years back, we launched into a technology initiative whose goal, Walls to Windows, whose goal was to provide access to students with devices in the world, and to do so through a very robust infrastructure. So, excuse me. So that's what we've been doing for a number of years. And within those years, we've had Janine and Adam working side by side with teachers in their classrooms with embedded professional development. So that's been very effective in bringing our teachers along the continuum and the learning curve. So tonight, what we're going to do is just touch on 3 topics, and that would be this SAMR framework. We'll give you a little bit more of that in a minute so you understand what the S, A, M, and R are about. But for the most part, it's measuring growth in teacher use of technology in classrooms. At that point, I'll turn it over to Janine and Adam to provide you some highlights from what's going on in classrooms with regard to the use of instructional technology, and to some extent, we'll see that in the context of this SAMR framework. And then towards the end of the presentation, I just have a couple of slides that will give you a sense of the technology, the 3-year technology plan that will begin in September of 2017. So tonight we'll show you the main goals, and then the work of breaking those down into indicators and all into a formal plan is still going on. So I'd like to start just by introducing you to SAMR. So SAMR, if you look from the bottom up, stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. I'll just keep it simple. What that means is technology can be used as an enhancement, which is the lower portion of that continuum, and work its way up to something that's more transformational. So, for example, if you were to take a pen out of a student's hand and give them a laptop, well, they would be typing in word processing. That's not state of the art necessarily as far as learning at a deeper level. What that is substitution. And I should also credit Dr. Ruben Pentador on this. This is his framework that districts across the country, and maybe even businesses, have really taken to using to measure the level of integration that is going on in an organization, and in our case, classrooms. So as you work up that continuum, you start to see more advanced kinds of activities going on. So that redefinition would give you the sense of something where students are creating something original that can be interactive around the world, and provide a product to the world and interact with people all over the world, and make it a dynamic platform for teachers and students to learn collaboratively. So we're going to talk a little bit about that continuum. Just to give you a sense of why that's important from a standpoint of administration, because that's my role, is that we're able to now have conversations with this framework with teachers about where they might be in any given use of technology. Already we've done some orientation to this concept of a framework in a continuum such as this, and so teachers and principals and administrators have all been talking a lot about, well, where was that activity that so if we observe a teacher, we can ask, where do you think on this continuum that activity falls? And keeping in mind that a teacher isn't on the framework, the teacher isn't on the continuum. You are an S, and then you are working up to be an R. That's not it. The activities fall on the continuum, because even your most master technology teacher in the world will still want to use technology in a fundamental sense sometimes, something like a word processor. So at any rate, we're very excited that we have this vehicle, this tool for creating discourse on, well, where are we at and what can we do more of? Towards the end, when I introduce a couple of the points of the goal, I'll get a little bit more into what that means as far as monitoring our instructional delivery in the context of the technology plan. Well, let's get into a little bit more of the funds where the master technology teachers can describe some of what's going on in the classrooms. So we'll start with Janine.
Thank you, Paul. I think Adam and I would both like to start by once again thanking Dr. Dolan and the board for their continued support of the technology initiative within the district. Over the last 5 years, with your support, the things we've been able to do within classrooms has been really wonderful, and we're very excited about the framework because, as Paul said, this will allow us to continue to grow as a district, and it'll allow us to go deeper into what our students and our teachers are doing. And every year we have the opportunity to come and present to you what's going on in the classrooms, but we thought this year it would be a good way to use the framework to highlight what we're already doing, because as Paul said, at any point, any of the activities that go on in our classrooms already are within the framework. Many people may be at the substitution level for a while, but they move sometimes into the modification level and things like that. So what we've done is we've taken the things we normally present to you and put it within the levels of the framework. So maybe you can get a little bit more understanding of what each of those levels happens to be about. And Adam's going to jump in as I go along. So as Paul said, at the bottom of the framework, which is widely used, it's that substitution. And very simply, could I do this with pen and paper? Could I do this normally in my classroom? But now maybe I'm using technology just to enhance that a bit. I'm not really making any functional change to the activity, but I'm using technology. And we call it like our base level. So, especially at our elementary level, which we have some pictures here of our younger students, maybe word processing. We started a Google initiative this year at the elementary level. So maybe it's a Google Docs situation where they're typing stories or reports. With our math program, we have a lot of iPad apps still with our iPads that our students are using to enhance what they're doing in the math class, but maybe not functionally changing what they're doing in the class. All the way to our librarians who are starting to use ebooks. So even though the kid might be reading it on a device, it's not really changing what's going on with that particular book. But it's a great way to get people into the framework. The teachers can get their feet wet, they can be comfortable with the technology. So when we work with them, that's kind of where we start them at that level. And same things with students and, us as users, we get very comfortable at that level.
And, just at the high school level, I'll just jump in. Substitution's been going on for years. We've beefed up our internet wireless access and things like that at the high school. So in our with our mobile labs and in our labs, you see substitution taking place all the time. Any of our one-to-one environments at the high school, teachers, and again, it's not something where it's the lowest level and it's something where we need to immediately bring them up. But you have this happening all the time where yes, students are using their either iPads or they're using their Chromebooks to simply type, do word processing. It's definitely happening, and it's happening at a pretty large percentage across the high school.
And then if we go to the next level, which is augmentation, so basically, once again, the technology is a substitute, but there's some kind of functional improvement to the technology. So you're adding something on that you wouldn't have been able to do without the technology. So if we're thinking a word processing or a Google Docs situation, students are using tools within that program. Maybe it's a spell check, maybe it's something in Google Docs like voice typing to assist them with their work. They're also adding different things on to the programs they're already using. So for example, with Google, Google Forms allows teachers to create quizzes or assessments that they can get quick feedback on, either a lesson that they've just taught or a whole unit that they've worked on that they couldn't really do as efficiently without the tool. And then with our kids in this class, they were working on, they created timelines. And normally they do that on construction paper or paper, but they made multimedia timelines. They were able to insert images and video clips and things that they would not have been able to do without the tool. So once again, it's a substitution, but it's an enhancement to the substitution. So that's where the augmentation level comes in.
And just at the high school, and this is me in the classroom recently, as of 2 days ago, I had my students create something authentic on the civil rights movement. We were studying the 1960 and 61 sit-ins and the freedom rides, and I had them create an authentic piece, which was training manuals to train the people that were going on the crusades of the 1960 and 61 sit-ins and freedom rides. So on those manuals, they're doing it on Google Doc, but on it there are instructions, there's images, there's graphs to follow. It's not like they're just typing. There is some functional improvement there with the technology, and not possible without that technology. So I think it's a pretty good example and illustrates what augmentation would be there at the high school level.
And for many of our teachers and students, we've been in these two levels for the last few years, especially since we've started with our technology initiative. Where some of us are and where we're hoping to push our teachers and students is to that next higher level of SAMR. And really when we start to talk this level, we're talking more transformative. So the first part of that is modification, where technology allows for a redefinition or redesign of the task. So with Google, we have the ability not only, like we said, to type, to add media, to use different tools, but the power of Google and other programs is things like peer collaboration. So they can work jointly on one story or one word processing document together. The other great part is that with Google Docs and with, as you see here, Google Classroom, teachers are now part of that document and they can receive instant feedback to the student. There's different programs. I know at the high school they use a program called Kaizena where they're allowed to actually record themselves
making an audio clip and attaching that to the Google Doc, so the next time the student opens it, they hit play and they can hear their teacher's audio feedback to their work and then make the improvements to that work. So once again, that's a redesign of a task that normally we might have sat down and have a conversation, which we still do as teachers, but we can also provide that now to them, without the walls of the classroom. And Google Classroom, as I said, is really where we're working with our students at all grade levels, from probably not first and second grade, but our third through high school level, to really work on an online sort of classroom environment, be able to push out assignments electronically and turn them in, and also to now start to use different tools within that.
And just to illustrate this, at the high school, any teacher that's involved with the writing process, whether it's the English department, social studies department, world language department, they're here. Most of them are here in the modification phase with the writing process, where they're giving real-time feedback on the writing assignment. Peer collaboration is going on constantly in these classes. So again, this sort of modification is certainly happening at the high school level in multiple content areas.
And then our last level, our highest level of this transformative part of the SAMR framework is redefinition, where you're now creating a new task that you would not have been able to do without the technology. It's a level that, sometimes we get to and sometimes we don't get to, but when it happens, it's wonderful. It might be a little hard to see here on the slide, but our fifth graders this year, they normally work on a nonfiction, we call it a feature article, kind of like a Time for Kids or a Time magazine has, and for years they've made word processing documents of that feature article on their topic. This year, because of Google and what we've been doing with, furthering the technology initiative, many fifth graders in our district designed their own website within Google Sites, and it's an actual website. It's not just a program that they use. It's a website that can be published to the web. It provides them an authentic audience worldwide, if we wanted it to be, where they can not only just type and add images and videos. We had many of our students design their websites and they filmed themselves. Maybe they were how-to things, or maybe they were interviews, and they put their videos into their websites, and they created these websites. They shared them with their classmates, and they got feedback from their classmates. And it was really impressive. This is actually a fifth grader who, if you can see it, it's about diabetes and the artificial pancreas. And I was fascinated checking out her website and seeing all the different things she had put in there. And she was just so excited about it. And the kids loved it because they knew that they kept asking me, can we actually publish this? Can someone go to my website? And you said, yes, you can put it out there. And that, really transformed and redefined that whole assignment. And actually, before I let him talk, we're going to be in Edison on Friday. Karen Marcus, who's a teacher over there, a science teacher, she is going to be Skyping with a NASA scientist who worked on the Mars rover. And the kids have been preparing for this. They've been studying astronomy, and they're going to talk to that scientist, ask questions, get some more information. So that's that level of redefinition where, yes, we could have, brought someone in, or they could have gone on a field trip. But when you do it within the classroom walls, which aren't even there anymore, and you can have that conversation with an actual person who does what they're studying about, it just changes what they're doing in the classroom.
Yeah, it's certainly happening at the high school as well. It's ambitious, but that's what we're going for here. Met the World Languages supervisor. A lot of his teachers are starting to explore the idea of Skyping with other classrooms, with other languages, whether it's within the state, outside of the state, outside of the country. So that's happening, and it's starting to happen even more. I'll also illustrate redefinition in our English department. That's
Want to go there yet?
No.
not yet.
No,
That's good.
not going there
You
yet.
can-
Anyway, lovely picture. In the English department, we had teachers last year with respect to redefinition, the JRP, the infamous JRP, that monster process that they do, and they've been doing for years. A couple of teachers decided to experiment in the redefinition sort of mode of having the kids not just go through the process, it's a multi-week process, possibly even multi-month process, where they had the kids build their own websites that captured their process and their approach of the JRP.
Which is what? Just say what it is.
Sorry, the junior research paper.
Thank you.
And it's a big deal for the juniors at Westfield High School. And a couple of teachers in the English department decided, hey, I'm not sure if they were thinking, let's redefine this thing in the SAMR model, but they certainly went for it. And they had their kids build Weebly sites, so a website, It was a blog, and it allowed the kids to illustrate and demonstrate their process as they went through the JRP to the teacher and to their peers. Phenomenal way to redefine that process as far as I was concerned. So just again, another idea or a way to illustrate redefinition. It's a pretty sound process they've got going there. So.
And then you have a.
The video. So this is, instead of, well, I guess we spoke a little bit about what's going on in high school. I decided to interview a bunch of teachers. I put, we kind of spoke about the SAMR framework and the model, and then we interviewed them about where they felt the SAMR model was showing up in their classrooms. It moves pretty quickly. These are kind of soundbite interviews. So just take a listen, and maybe we'll have some questions after. Hopefully the volume is good.
One of the main things that I feel technology can bring to the classroom is a solution where a problem couldn't be solved before.
It's really changed the way that we're pushing kids to develop analytical thinking and writing skills.
I think the age of the teacher standing in front of the classroom and delivering knowledge is pretty much over.
By having the Chromebooks, it opens them up to find their own sources through different medias, maybe a YouTube video, a secondary source on a website that I may never even heard of or thought of, and they have to then evaluate, is this source relevant? Can I use this source? How can I use this source? How can this aid my argument? Does it change my argument?
We wanted to give students an opportunity to show their analytic thinking other than just writing your traditional 5-paragraph essay.
I teach AP Government and Politics, and as a part of the course, we often use debates as a way for students to examine political issues and controversial topics.
We decided to have students make short films that explored point of view. The play is told from a third-person point of view. We wanted to explore a different perspective. How would this play be different? How would the characters be different? What insights would we learn if it were told from perhaps a first-person perspective?
One of the things that we've noticed about our classes is that they've had trouble narrowing research topics. This is a skill that has been on every set of standards since forever, because it's a really difficult and non-quantifiable skill. It's difficult to do, but it's something that as adults and as college students are expected to do.
I could stand up there, I could give a lecture, I could do a PowerPoint, take notes, have a quiz on it, and that's fine. They probably get the material, but it wouldn't really stay with them and resonate with them. So the technology is able to allow us to have more of a creative aspect to history. And what we did was we decided to do attack ads against the other side. They assigned a side, either Jefferson or Adams in the election of 1800. You had to make or create a website or a video that uses a variety of different medias, pictures, you had to voice record.
As in the past, it would be traditional to, as a history teacher, give a student a document, they're going to analyze it, give it back, maybe write an analysis paragraph, and that's fine, but that kind of ended their process. With technology in the classroom now, they can do that digitally. They can, while they're doing the analysis as a teacher, I can jump on, see what they're doing, and push them to deepen their analysis.
The students will use the Chromebooks as a way to prepare for the debate as far as setting up a Google Doc so that they can collaborate and organize their arguments. Central to the new curriculum is what's going on in the world today. And all of our thematic units are based on current politics, economic problems, and so we're always looking at the media from French-speaking countries. We're listening to podcasts from French-speaking countries. The technology is essential in terms of bringing the content into the classroom.
And during the debates, the students will also use the Chromebooks to fact-check the opposing team's arguments.
The students collaborated. The skills involved kind of go beyond just the writing of an analytical essay. I mean, group collaboration, planning, storyboarding, and then eventually the actual production of the film.
The Chromebook actually changed the dynamic of the classroom, and now they grouped in pods of 4 desks, and it works beautifully. And actually the students speak amongst themselves much more than they used to.
We tried to get students to be able to narrow a research topic that they genuinely were interested in using what we called free search instead of research. We had kids create either a Prezi, a timeline, a mind map, or some other visual depiction of their research process, the sources that they used, the key words and search terms that they used, which avenues they went, what mental questions popped up from one idea to the other.
And because of the collaborative availability also on this, students can push each other. And one student can raise something that another didn't think of that, and all of that deepens their ability to analyze, and technology allows that to happen.
I think that gives you the sense of the approach that the teachers are taking towards technology, and working with the SAMR framework allows us to at least have that conversation. I mean, they're having the conversation on their own. It's gonna be our job to get all of the teachers and their minds around when they're creating lessons to reach those, you know, hopefully move up into those top 2 tiers, but it's already happening, so pretty exciting, and it's pretty impressive to teachers as far as the way they're articulating themselves and how they're approaching their lessons, so. Questions about it?
Any of the classroom stuff, and then I'll get back to the nitty-gritty of the plan.
So part of our plan is to kind of give everybody a common language to talk about this, right? And I assume that falls into goal 1 under the plan, but it sounds like we're sort of already there. I assume that it all plays into curriculum development. It will all play into the evaluation process, what our supervisors and our administrators are expecting to see in the classroom. So it's really, I mean, it's broad, it's big. This is a big goal in my mind, but exciting, not daunting, but it crosses all sorts of borders.
I'll speak a little more
Okay,
specifically
yeah.
to that in a second, but yes.
I just have one question, and it kind of comes from being old. But do you see any students who struggle with technology, like the use of technology? Like if I go to do PowerPoint or something up here and I'm cursing at the computer or whatever it happens to be, do you see that at all in the young people that there are, because there's different levels of learning. I mean, are there some kids who just pick this up and of course go with it, and are there kids who could be struggling with maybe at home projects and so forth that just don't get that?
When we first introduce, especially like elementary into middle school level, yes, we do see that. It's the same thing like you said, it's with anything. There's a learning curve and there's different types of learners and things like that. And, our teachers, as they always are really great at understanding that and bringing in us as resources to kind of how can we teach this and how can we make it the most understandable for the students. But the good thing about technology and our youngsters is that once we get them past whatever stumbling blocks they may have, they get it and they pick it up quickly and they're excited about it too. So, that's the beauty of technology, is that you have that hook with them. But yes, there are students that do struggle at the beginning, but it's not something that we can't get through and work through.
And I've mentioned this before, most of the kids that we're dealing with, at least at the high school level, are pretty good. Naturally, they have some innate skill with the tech, but it's where they struggle is more how the tech applies to the learning directly, or just the lesson, and how to run with the tech in a smart and efficient way versus an inefficient and going down the wrong pathway. That's where I think they struggle with the tech a little bit. So it's a little bit up to us and also the teachers to make sure the technology and the learning and the education are working in sync together effectively.
Right, and that's where I was gonna go next. Do we think our students are graduating, from high school with these good tech skills that they can take on and really use them as they get to college, or are we still developing and getting there?
What kind of tech skills would you be referring to?
Well, as you said, one being able to really narrow down and use it efficiently, and also, as I said, are all the students able to use the different programs on the computers, properly and.
I'd say anything like Web 2.0, so that language, kids are pretty good at Westfield, pretty prepared to go on into college. Any of the Google cloud-based stuff, any of the word processing, some Excel, some Word documents, no problem, moving on. Internet use, research, very sound.
I was just also thinking from the teacher perspective, how are they as far as adapting the technology and understanding, or do they have any issues in embracing the technology, so, and that they're exposed to, and understanding how do they integrate it into their class, so that they teach, not only the students can learn more from the technology, but they don't necessarily have the skills yet to understand what the capabilities they may have.
Oh, please.
I think, Michael, you just nailed the whole point of where we're moving next, and that's, so we're all using technology, and Janine and Adam have done such a great job of moving people along and guiding them, supporting them. Our professional development has done the same. But now what? How do we make sure that if a teacher needs more support on that learning curve, that they're getting it? So by creating this discourse and then implementing it through observation and evaluation, and also in curriculum, one of the things I'm going to mention is that supervisors and their departments and grade levels with principals will begin creating best practice units, so that if we know in, for example, world languages, there's, and they'll collaborate on this, it will be a good team activity for teachers, but if they create a way to use technology and are consciously aware of striving towards the transformational aspects of the continuum, so the M and the R. So if we put teachers together and they build a lesson together that way, then that's a benchmark for their development. So the idea as administrators is for us to provide the resources to help teachers create their own benchmarks for moving along that continuum. That's why we're excited about the framework as well, because it's not the idea of like a gotcha survey or a list that we go into a classroom and check things off. It's a tool for us to collaborate and develop those best practices together. So for those teachers that might be, like any students, struggling, if you would say that, and, or just wanting to and needing to move a little bit further along, we're going to provide those resources in the manner that I've described. So that's how we hope to catch those folks and be able to help them.
Yeah, and I can also see the collaboration extending beyond just a particular department, where you can have the language arts department communicating with the history department. So, for example, the fifth graders doing in history on Abraham Lincoln, well, then that they can work with the language arts department on to how to improve their grammar and their language skills when producing a report on Abraham Lincoln.
Some of the most innovative things that our high school has achieved have been done that way across the language arts and social studies, the humanities, and in fact, some of our initial grants and highlighted projects that were in fact celebrated in Trenton with the Department of Education started in that cross-content way with language arts and social studies. Okay. All right, so just a little bit more with regard to the goal itself. I do want to say about that video, what came to me as Janine and Adam were talking is that, a few years back, we were sort of holding up devices and going, look what you can do with this. When you listen to those high school teachers speaking, they're speaking about thinking, they're speaking about acting, they're not speaking about this app or this device. And I think it was okay. I think we could follow along with what they were saying, but it just reminds me of why we teach the thinking and the problem solving as opposed to the app or the device. Certainly that's important too. And
if you heard in their clips,
yeah.
You heard the word analysis, you heard the word collaboration, creativity, right? So that's what was coming out. It wasn't, to Paul's point, just, hey, we're Skyping or whatever that is. Well, what does Skyping get you? It gets you collaboration. It gets you different perspectives. That's what the teachers were talking about. So that's which is great that they're talking about that naturally. So.
Well, and that's kudos to y'all. I mean, you've laid such a strong foundation over the past few years so that we don't have to talk about, oh, there's this app, there's this, this device any longer. It's really a tribute to you guys and the work that you've done.
A little to the side, but I was spending some time with my younger daughter who's graduated college and in digital marketing, digital filmmaking marketing. And she said she was going to work from home today because of transit. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? And she said, well, they'll just post it on Slacker. And I said, well, what's Slacker? She said, well, it's this app that everybody uses, or it's this phone. So what happens is they just post stuff that they need to know. So if you're working in one office and you don't know how to do something that you think someone else does, or that you just say, who knows how to do this? it's the equivalent, I guess, of standing up in your office and saying, "Hey, who can help me with," but they do all that digitally. And, it reminds me of what our students are doing by collaborating on a regular basis within, the Google platform. And then when they get into the workplace, I mean, my daughter wasn't taught Slacker when she was in college, and now she's using it, but it carries over. So I'm really excited about the work that our teachers have done, that our administrators have done in support of them. And of course, really, since day one, at the heart of all of that has been the professional development that's provided by Janine and Adam. And I can't stress it enough. Working side by side with a teacher is a lot different than giving them a workshop once in a while and saying good luck with it. So that works. So now in the scheme of a plan, we've done, in last year or so especially, some visits of other school districts. We've inquired with other school districts. I'm always talking to colleagues. And we've been monitoring where BYOD, bring your own device, would fit in. And we've done a little bit of that sort of piloting here in the district. And some of it's going on and effectively. And and then there's always the discussion of one-to-one. So what we have found outside of the district is BYOD, and a little bit inside too, can struggle. Bringing your own device can struggle if, in fact, the devices aren't being used. If you tell all the students, bring your laptops in, and then they're not used consistently. We think kids love to have their devices. Well, they do, but they don't really want to carry a laptop around all day long if it's only being used in spots and not too often. So that's going to actually play into one of our goals that's upcoming, taking that into consideration. Another thing we saw in one district in particular was one-to-one. So every student was given a device in high school, and it was in fact a Chromebook, and the teachers were encouraged to use them. And then we toured this high school, and we walked around for an hour, and I think it was only one physics class that was really, and they were doing a great job with it, using the technology where everybody else was kind of doing traditional stuff. So my takeaways from that are, if you're going to, in fact, want to have some kind of one-to-one access for students, there has to be a platform expectation. So my feeling was, if that school said all teachers are going to be working from Google Classroom, and that's where assignments are posted, and that's where the work takes place, and that's where you're collaborating, well, then the devices will open up when you walk in the door. So when you think about the return on investment for putting a device in all of those students' hands and then telling the teachers, use them as much as you can, we knew better than that, and we knew that you all wouldn't be too happy with that. So we wanted to make sure that we developed critical mass. So something that I like to consider sort of a hybrid is that we find out where there is critical mass for that kind of usage, and then we provide it. So for example, social studies has been ahead of the curve in learning Google Classroom. So a couple of years back, they began grades 6 through 12 learning how to do Google Classroom and then all using it across the board. And so that provides a great opportunity. Every kid has social studies grades 6 through 11, and many or most in 12th grade. So one of our targets is to provide a one-on-one environment within the classrooms, grades 6 through 12 in social studies. And so what that'll enable us to do is allow those students to do that kind of work, knowing that the teachers are prepared with expectations and skill sets of their own, and that the devices will be available. We've also found over the years that students don't seem to have a problem with access at home, which is really great and fortunate for us. Our students are fortunate to be in that situation where they have access at home. So these devices don't have to follow the students out of the classrooms. So what we will have is a hybrid. We'll have one-to-one, a device per student when they walk in the classroom, and they open it up out of the cart and they get to work. Maintenance in districts that go one-to-one full-blown and hand them off to the students to take off is a big issue. Broken screens and just forgetting to charge them and all of that kind of thing. These things are charged, they're opened up, and you get to work. So that's something that I think we've pulled away from our observations of things that have gone on in other districts. So now to ground it a little bit more. So goal 1 goes back to this idea that these teachers and administrators and myself and all of us need to continue our development as users of technology in the classroom. So the 4 points on this slide include that we're launching seriously into this idea of creating discourse through a SAMR framework. And that will, over the next 3 years of the plan, we will be implementing it, using it. How will we be using it? We observe teachers, we have that discussion. Where did your use of technology fall during that activity? And another way we would use it is in evaluation. Our rubrics for the Kim Marshall model have sections for the use of technology. And then lastly, this idea, based on the question that Michael presented, that we would create these common units as benchmarks, is another way to make sure we're grounding in this SAMR framework, that we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so that kind of covers a lot of what's in this goal of supporting the teachers through continued growth, because it also includes the targeted professional development. We also have on the horizon in 2018, September, a new website. Our current website, Edline, is going to be phased out, and its parent company will be providing an alternative for us. So now we're faced with the idea, what does that mean to teachers working with students? Edline was never a strong platform for interacting with students. So what we're thinking now is that a platform like Google, likely Google, might be, Google Classroom would be the place for teachers to be interacting with their students. And then above that would be the school sites that would be like Edline now, which has all the resources that parents need. And then above that, the district website. So that would be the umbrella of what people see and how they interact. But then when it came to the classroom interactions, that would be this consistent Google platform. And so we're going to have to work on supporting teachers through that transition as well. Okay, so that covers goal 1. And then there's goal 2. Every objective that we discussed and goal that we discussed seemed to fall under these 2 ideas, which was keep learning, as far as using technology, and then keep enhancing learning. So that's goal 2, enhance the learning through the integration of technology. So I've already mentioned the one-to-one opportunities that we'll be starting in social studies, and then we'll be looking to extend that. That's ambitious. It's awesome, and I'm really excited that we're able to do it, that we have a readiness for it, and I think it's a great way to make sure that all students are going to have that same kind of experience that they can carry into college and careers. And on top of that, we will continue to refresh the technology that is in place. It doesn't mean that we're only just going to be looking in one department. It means that we're going to continue to infuse at the elementary levels where they have to be refreshed, replaced, they will be, and we'll continue to enhance access as well. And so we've been doing that, and that is still the plan, to continue doing that. Yeah. Okay, I think that's, I could go on, obviously, but I can stop there and just see if you have any questions. And I'm looking forward to meeting with the Board of Ed Technology Committee on Friday, because I know we can certainly drill this down a little further and continue our thinking on it. But
I think you can tell that, honestly, if you're in education, it's such an exciting time. Are there challenges? Sure there are. Change is always challenging, but it is so exciting because you truly can, whatever it is you're teaching, however you're working with students, the depth you can achieve and the transformation you can receive with technology is just amazing. It truly is an exciting time, and I think you can sense the excitement from the 3 people who presented tonight.
thanks,
Anybody have any
as always,
questions?
thanks for your support.
All right, great. Thank
Okay.
you very much, you guys. Appreciate your time. I'll ask the board to approve the minutes of our board meeting held on March 28, 2017, and the private minutes of the same date. Can I have a second, please? Amy, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Charles abstained. Dana. Moving right along, personnel. Mark.
Before I start on that, Dana, I think that number 27 and number 7 are the same.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless, but is one,
I
are they
checked them.
literally word for word?
I
Okay.
thought I checked them.
Yeah, they're identical.
Okay.
Such a good idea, we're doing it twice?
I was
I
gonna
know
say,
we
let's
like 'em,
approve
so,
them twice.
yeah.
Apparently.
Want to just make sure that's the same?
Yes, it is, it is. So we'll just
Okay.
delete
Okay.
27.
All right, thank you. Actually, there are 2 different agenda items.
I have
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so that being said, I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 26. Do you have a second?
Second.
Chris, thank you. Any comments or questions? Dr. Dolan, you have a few things.
Thank you. Two topics, two of the agenda items I'd like to point out tonight. The first one deals with the first agenda item, which has to do with retirements. Tonight, I'm announcing with regret the retirements of 4 staff members who have given a total of 98 years to the service of Westfield Public Schools. For 17 years, Jerzy Romanecki has worked as a custodian at Tamaqua, the high school, and currently as a night custodian at Edison Intermediate School. He takes responsibility and works to make his areas clean for the staff and the students. Since 1999, Trish Cheek has worked as a secretary in the business office, the Office of Fine Arts and Special Education, and at Wilson and Franklin schools, where she served as head secretary. Trish is creative and puts together displays of student artwork in the building, and she enjoyed working with Linda King to produce newsletters for the Fine Arts Department. For the last 24 years, Daria Bonavita has been an elementary librarian in the district. While Jefferson has consistently been her home, she has also served as a librarian for Franklin and Lincoln schools. Daria is passionate about the place that research and library skills play in a student's development. She has championed the use of online resources for even the youngest learners, which I think is why when they get to the high school, they have a good basis there so they can move on from that. Donna Panagos has been a Westfield math teacher for 40 years. She equally enjoyed teaching upper levels of math at the high school and intermediate level courses at Roosevelt and Edison schools. She knows all levels of the secondary math curriculum well and has served as a willing resource and mentor to teachers at the beginning of the math careers in the district. It has been her passion that students are well prepared for the next level of math as they progress to grades 6 through 12. We wish all of them well. And my second topic.
Gretchen threw me for curveball. She was
I
standing
did,
out.
I know, sorry.
My second topic tonight, I believe, is agenda item 7. And tonight, I'm very pleased to be recommending Enrique Pincay for the position of Supervisor of World Languages and ELL. Mr. Pincay is highly qualified for this position, having served 11 years as a supervisor and also 9 years' experience as a teacher. A search committee in the district was led by Assistant Superintendent Pinero and the Human Resources Director, Mrs. Ball. The committee of teachers and administrators was unanimous in their recommendation, and I'm very pleased to recommend to the board the appointment of Mr. Pincay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? No? Dana, please?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Astroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes. All right, congratulations. I don't know if you're under no obligation, but if you'd like to come and say a few words, you're more than welcome.
Be more than happy to.
5 languages.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan. Thank you, board members. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Dolan, Ms. Ball, Mr. Pinedo, and the rest of the committee, the interviewing committee members, for their recommendation and for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I'm lucky to be here in front of you, in front of an educational community that prides itself for having a tradition of excellence. It is my hope that I can contribute to that with my experience, with my skills and knowledge. I'd like to share a little something with you about my interview process, which I'm sure you know it's very long. When I first came here to Westfield to interview for the very first time, my knowledge about Westfield was limited. Limited to what I could see on a web page. And no criticism to the wonderful job you're doing with technology, by the way. But I'm talking about the culture of the district, the culture of the people, what makes Westfield Westfield, and what makes it excellent. And so with every trip that I took here to 302 Elm Street, I learned more and more. I continue to learn more and more about Westfield. And it was at that moment that I realized I was in the presence of educational leaders that went above and beyond to make sure that students in Westfield can be the best they can be. At that moment, I realized that Westfield was a good fit for me. Now, today, I'm elated to see that you feel the same way about me and that you feel I can also be a good fit for Westfield. So I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for anyone who has ever contributed to my professional growth and anyone who has ever supported me. I want to thank my family for their support and anyone who supported me and continues to support me. I definitely look forward to working with all the teachers in both departments and all of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Mark?
I'm waiting for him to do the other 4 languages.
Facilities, Brendan.
Ask the board to consider facilities item number 1. And second,
Second.
Chris, thank you.
Anybody have any questions or?
All right, Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Astroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes. Do we know when our next facilities committee meeting is in May, correct?
The May 5th.
May we have
Oh,
to
right,
cancel,
we
so I
did.
think it's June.
June 16th.
Perfect. Long-range planning, Mark?
We haven't had a meeting, Dr. Dolan, where do we stand with the
With the
demographer?
I think the demographer is waiting for some information from the architect about the facilities.
Yes, we provided them with some enrollment information, past enrollment information. We're updating our facilities information, the usage, he asked for usage of buildings so that, in capacity. So we're in the midst of updating that now, because that hadn't been updated in a few years. And then, once we get that to him, I think he said about 4 to 6 weeks until he gets us something back.
So that's in here, right? We approved that already?
We've
The
already
architect
approved
work?
that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the George's, we're approving George and.
Yeah, that's
yes,
what I thought,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But this year's.
And then we'll be able to schedule a meeting when we know the demographer has the report.
So you think maybe we'll meet once more before the
By the
end of the
year?
school year, hopefully?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. Great. Policies, Chris?
Yep, we have 2 items on for policies. We'll do them one at a time. I'd like the board to consider for approval the second reading of the 2 policies listed, 1510, Americans with Disabilities Act, 8505, the Wellness Nutrition Policy. Can I have a second? Charles, thank you. Any comments or questions about either of the policies? Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Astroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
The second item, I'd like to consider, have the board consider for approval the affirmation of the superintendent's decision on HIV incident 17MC01 for the reasons set forth in the report. Can I have a second? Thank you, Amy.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Charles Astroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And we will have our next policies meeting on May 16th on the calendar. That's
Great.
all I have.
Thank you. Curriculum, I would like to ask the board to consider curriculum items 1 through 3. Can I have a second, please? Michael, thank you. The district field trips are self-explanatory. I circulated notes on the presentation to the curriculum committee for the revised physical education and practical arts curriculum. Does anybody have any questions? And then the math and social studies we've seen before. This is their second reading. So if there aren't any questions, Dana, go ahead.
Mike Beelan.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Charles Astroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes. Thank you. Finance, Mark.
I would like the board to consider finance items 1 through 27.
Second.
Second, thank you, Gretchen. Any comments or questions? We have a lot of generous folks, so I have a few gifts to acknowledge. First, I'd like to accept the gift, the board would like to accept the gift of $9,350 from an anonymous donor to Franklin School to purchase 30 Chromebooks and a Chromebook cart. That's great. Also accept the gift of $8,025 from the McKinley Ptso to McKinley School to purchase 25 Chromebooks and a Chromebook cart. We'd also like to accept a gift of $3,059 from the McKinley Ptso to purchase 100 folding chairs to replace older chairs at McKinley School. We'd also like to accept a gift of $500 from Mr. Richard Cheng to the Roosevelt Intermediate School to purchase technology. Also accepting a gift of $250 from the Weinreb Berenda Carter Foundation in memory of Dr. Ruth W. Berenda to support the instrumental music program at Tamaqua School. And also accepting a gift of $548.50 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts to cover travel expenses for the Westfield High School Wind Ensemble's concert performance at the New Jersey State Band Gala on April 30th, 17. And lastly, we'd like to accept a gift of 4 lateral art filing cabinets valued at $450 from Ms. Suzanne Hannes to the Roosevelt Intermediate School. So thank you, everybody, for your donations. Anybody else? Dana?
Mike Thielen?
Yes.
Mark Friedman?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Chris Langhart?
Yes.
Gretchen Olig?
Yes.
Peggy Astor?
Yes.
Charles Astroff?
Yes.
Amy Root?
Yes.
And as far as next meeting, I'm not exactly sure. Dana, do you know?
It's the 12th.
Okay, thank you very much. May 12th. That's it.
Great. Technology. Peggy, any report?
No, we meet on Friday, and I'm looking forward to discuss, I don't know, the details of the presentation more and planning forward.
Great. I would ask the board to note the notes for the record. And do we have any unfinished business to talk about tonight? Under new business, I know a few of you reached out to me. We all saw, well, not we all, some of us probably saw some chatter on social media about the recent rankings that came out. So I thought that maybe so we all had collective knowledge, Dr. Dolan could give us a brief update and,
Sure.
yeah.
So I'm positive that there have been over a dozen rankings of schools by various magazines and newspapers this year. I know it's over a dozen. I haven't counted them exactly. And obviously, each periodical has to use different criteria and methodology, otherwise all the rankings would be the same and they wouldn't all publish them, right? So what's always key is to look and try to determine what the criteria is. Now, the fact of the matter is that the students in Westfield High School and their parents tend to focus on the future quite a bit, and their focus tends to be on assessments that look towards the future, such as SATs and ACT scores and AP scores. Another percentage that's pretty important is that it was mentioned earlier tonight, 97% of our students further their education after school. So if you find rankings that highlight those areas, you're going to find Westfield near the top because our students really excel. They earn high scores and they do well. They take their education and their future seriously. Now, U.S. News and World, I think it's just U.S. News now, I'm not sure. U.S. News released their information today. So what we can tell from our initial look at their methodology and their criteria, their first step is they looked at PARCC scores. Now, PARCC is at best a moving target. It's an assessment that's been politicized. So if you look, not just in Westfield, but if you look district to district and year to year, you're going to find that the participation rate of how many students take the test at the high school varies very widely. And that makes a difference, and it makes it a little bit hard to compare. First of all, there was the first year of the test where it was all a social media buzz, and a number of students decided not to take the test seriously. They took the test, but they decided not to take it seriously. And if you don't know that, speak to some parents who had children, or speak to some of the students who took the test, and ask them what they did do on the test. And then you have some schools where the parents who have children who are in special education, they decided not to take the test. It became something that that group decided. But if you go to the next town, that wasn't an issue there. In this town, this political group said the test was bad, and the next town, that political group did. So the park test right now is a political issue that's being debated even down in Trenton. It's already, the Assembly already has a vote saying we should do away with park as a graduation. And the Senate hasn't approved a bill, but they've sent a note to the Department of Education saying do away with park. Well, with that, I would argue that park is probably not a good place to start with your criteria, because it's not a valid, you can't make a valid comparison. But that's what they chose. It's their ranking. They're capable of doing that. But that's why Westfield isn't on there, because that year, the way they looked at the park, we didn't have the students participating, and we didn't make it. Although our students did well in at all the other assessments.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions?
Was it a percentage or overall we didn't participate?
I think that so if they were looking at last year's data, we had 50% of our students at the high school who took the test. They're looking at the first year of the assessment. We had a higher percentage who were taking the assessment that year. However, that year, a number of students took the test, but they knew it was a political issue and they didn't take it seriously. Some of them wrote lyrics for their essays, lyrics to songs that they liked for their essays, for example. They had been told to take it, so they took it, but they didn't take it seriously. So from year to year, from town to town, you're just going to find different answers as to why the numbers vary. And you will see, not just in Westfield, one of the districts who ranked quite high, 36% of their students took the test in the year that they used the data. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you how 36% of your students did, but it doesn't tell you how that high school did. You know, so it's just, right now it's a time of transition, and the data for that test is not particularly helpful.
So if that's the starting point for developing their criteria, then
they did right.
We were basically out of it from the get-go.
That's correct. Because of that was their first step, park. And based on that first step of park, we didn't get to go to step 2, 3, 4. That was their methodology. So they didn't look at our graduation, they didn't look at our SATs, they didn't look at our ACT scores. They only looked at that park. And then because of that, we never got to another step.
As you said, our students didn't, just weren't in the game.
Right, that first year, they were not.
Right, and what I referenced about the different methodologies is they might have been looking at Park, and then you look at Newsweek, and I'm not saying one methodology is better than another, or one is right or wrong, but the Newsweek methodology looked more at the SAT and AP, accounting for 35% of what their ranking consisted of. So in that case, in 2016, we ranked 67 on the Newsweek poll. On the New Jersey Monthly poll, we're ranked 8, 21, and 49 for the past 3 years. So the poll numbers are all over the place, and I think we just need to look at the school system as a whole, because it's not also taking into account the various intangibles of what we're doing in the community, what they're doing for extracurricular activities, and all the other programs that they're involved in. And I think we just need to take polls. Yes, we all want to be on top of the list, but they're all different criteria, and they're all over the place.
Well said.
Yes.
About to say, adding on what Michael was saying is, I guess, because as you said, a lot of people, the future and rankings and everything else, I'm not saying that it's a throwing the thing anymore in place. It'd be interesting to see how, based upon what we feel is important, where we rank with that poll. And that's based upon
Right,
what Michael said.
yeah, we gotta, and it's also just that we're raising good children, that they start off as a child as a 5 or 6 year old, and by the time they're 18, they're an adult, that they have the values that we've instilled in them in the school system, and no poll can measure that.
Right.
And that's what I feel we're doing, and that's why I have my children in the school system. I've seen them grow personally, and I know I've heard from other people they have as well.
It also goes back to that point too of being critical about the data that you find available out in the world, and I'm hoping we do a good job of teaching our kids how to be critical of what goes in order to yield some number that then makes us look not as good as we know we are.
Right.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that while we weren't actually ranked, the number that they are using to prioritize the schools, they're calling it a college readiness index. We have a score for that, and it would have put us between 29 and 30 in the state.
See, I know Brendan's always gonna come through with the numbers.
So
Thank
we
you,
didn't meet
Brendan.
the threshold, all of our other numbers work out to put us right between 29 and 30
Awesome.
of all public schools.
Right, so thank you for taking time. I didn't want to give it too much credence, but at the same time, I know that it's something that the community, it's something they react to. So hopefully, I think the more information that we arm everyone with, including ourselves, then we all know how much significance to ascribe to it. So thank you. Is there any other new business we need to talk about? Liaison reports?
Just real quick, Roosevelt is having a busy spring. One of the things that Roosevelt is working on is getting a new principal. So we're in the middle of interviews for that, and I'm serving on that committee. So that will that'll be interesting to see, because Mr. Carey's been there a long time, and we'll miss him terribly. But they're planning ahead. They had orientation for new parents last week. This Friday is a spaghetti dinner that they've been working on for a while. The kids are going to be serving meals, and students will be playing musical accompaniment as a fundraiser for one of the charities that the school is supporting. So that's kind of an exciting event for them. And plans continue for kind of a new project that they're doing, a year-end field day that's going to involve all the kids from the school, which is nice. And then on the PTC level, the PTC had their meetings last week, and also did Crossing Guard Appreciation Day on Friday, which is a lovely annual acknowledgement of what the crossing guards do for the community. So that was a nice event, and as many as we could get came for coffee and a lovely photo that I think was in one of the online publications, which is Tap into Westfield. Yep. So, and they're working to kind of share ideas about, among the schools, about assembly ideas, trying to kind of form a bit of sort of their own kind of shared services agreement to work on landscaping projects, kind of bundling some schools together to see if they could get some cost savings among the PTOs. Sorry, not the school budget, but the PTO budget. So,
Gotcha.
That's about it.
Great, thank you.
And the Memorial Library is holding their annual spring book sale. It started today and it's going through the 29th. So if you want to pick up some good deals on books, now's the opportunity to visit the library.
I'll just very quickly, I am the liaison to the Westfield High School PTSO, and as many of you probably know, they had a very successful fundraiser to fund for the purchase of air conditioning units, so that each classroom at the high school will be air conditioned. And it was really quite impressive. I mean, it was in a matter of days that they were able to raise the money for the 50, 80 units. I can't remember exactly how many, but
26, right? About 500 units, 13,000. Oh, no, because we're throwing it right.
Anyway, it was very impressive, and I just want to personally express my thanks to all the PTSOs who, from really across the district, who have, assisted in getting air conditioning units in classrooms where we otherwise don't have them. And we're glad we've been able to accommodate the increased energy costs in our budget, and hopefully some of that will be offset by the new solar once all that's up and running. So it's a great collaboration, and we're always grateful for the efforts of the PTSOs. At this point, I'll recognize anyone from the public with questions or comments. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, I would ask the board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, legal matters, contract negotiations, personnel and harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussions will be made public as soon as practicable. Can I have a second? Amy, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody's ever opposed. We're in private session.